Welcome to the 10-Minute Treasure. My name is Jeff Pospisil, and I'm continuing my Church Foundation series, and I'm walking through these governing documents for a church foundation step by step by step. So there's a whole series of these videos, and one of my hopes is that if you have a church foundation, maybe you'll have an idea about how to fine-tune it. Maybe it'll work better, be more effective for your church. And specifically, I'm thinking about the church, not just the foundation, but I want your church ministry to prosper because of the foundation. Or if you haven't set up a church foundation, this will give you some ideas on how exactly to do that. And in this week, we're going to look at reporting, which might not sound that cool, but I think it is important, and the use of assets. So let's go ahead and start with reporting. And how this one is set up is that the church foundation owes an annual report to the church, and that report contains such information as shall be requested in writing by the church. And this is important, I think. You would be surprised how many churches, our church foundations, I guess, see that money as their own, I don't know, own coffee can of money, their own pot of money. And they won't tell the church how much money they have, what their earnings were, necessarily how they used it. And that's just an unhealthy relationship because, again, remember that the church should be basically the owner of this church foundation. So the church foundation serves the church. And part of that would mean you have to be accountable to the church through a report. So I just strongly encourage that the church should know how the money is being invested, what are the returns, what's the amount available. And again, the church foundation still fulfills their duties on protecting the money and protecting the donor designations, but they also have a duty of reporting to the church as well. The next section deals with limitations upon the use of the endowment fund. And this church and their foundation, they really wanted to grow a $500,000 endowment. And so they put some restrictions on there, and they said you couldn't encroach upon the corpus until it's greater than $500,000. So you could spend the earnings, but you couldn't spend the corpus, so the accumulated gifts. If I had a criticism here, instead of plugging in $500,000, just because of inflation, $500,000 gets less in value every year. So I might do this in relation to maybe the annual budget. So maybe I want to say it's 2 times or 5 times the annual budget, something like that, where that'll grow over time, and so you're growing the corpus at the same time. So that's just my criticism, I guess. Take it for what you want, but I rarely like using strict dollar amounts here, especially for something that's supposed to be so long-lived as an endowment fund. That's supposed to last for decades and decades and decades, where again, no matter what dollar amount you put in there, it's going to lose value over time. And then they add one more restriction in there, and I think this is a really good one, by the way, is that the purpose for which the distributions can be made are religious, charitable, educational, or maintenance of the properties. But here's the key part. They also say that these are separate and apart and outside of the regular operational budget. So, and that was very clear. When I talked to the chairperson, that was the one thing that stuck in their mind. We are not going to pay for the operations of the church. We'll pay for improvements or projects that enhance the church but don't fit in the budget. But we're not going to fund the budget this way. That should be funded by the people in the pews. So I like that focus. And again, when I talked to the chairperson about it, that was one thing that really stuck in their mind, is that was the limitation they put on themselves, and they really honored that. This has been a much shorter video than usual, but hopefully it's helpful in thinking about those things and on how you're going to put restrictions that are going to guide you in managing these long-term funds. Again, this is a ministry of the Dakotas Conference, as well as the Dakotas Methodist Foundation and Minnesota Methodist Foundation. All right, God bless you until next time.